We saw in the last episode a few of the initial hidden or esoteric symbols at the beginning of the game, and now, as promised, I'd like to take us into Rapture itself. First, inside of the lighthouse, we find the Masonic square and compass hidden in plain sight on top of the ceiling. Later, I'll break down the meanings behind this, but first let's descend into the lighthouse itself and enter our destiny. Rapture, the perfect city under the sea. Or is it? So first, what is Rapture? In the literal material world of the game, it's a utopian city built under the surface of the ocean in which its creator Andrew Ryan created as an antithesis or antidote to his frustrations with post-war America. Ryan created the city to escape what he saw as an unfit society, politically, artistically, and importantly too, economically. I say economically because a large part of his vision is based on pure capitalism, with little or in fact no state intervention, where free markets and only free markets create all facets of society. Goodbye social care, goodbye communal responsibility. Every man to be free to create and maintain his own existence, and what he needs could be purchased. Food, healthcare, even the city's police and fire departments to be run by private businesses. Furthermore, even oxygen itself is included in this mandate. Sounds wonderful. It isn't, and we'll see this later in the game's narrative. Rapture traditionally, however, comes from a religious conception and encompasses three main interpretations. On a baser level, it means a manifestation of ecstasy or passion, and certainly Ryan manifests his passion in the building of a utopian ideal, albeit at the expense of others. In the second interpretation, we have a mystical experience in which the spirit reaches knowledge of the divine. And last, in Christian doctrine, rapture signifies Christ's returning to earth, whereby the souls of the living and dead are raised into the divine, although of course this only includes the believers. So in all three of these meanings we have the following ideas: a strong emotional manifestation of ecstasy, reaching the divine, utopian ideals manifested literally or spiritually. So Ryan City hints at a utopian state, free from all constraints, whether artistically, scientifically or politically, and this leads to a heaven on earth of sorts. Whether or not we can assume he believes he is some kind of Christ or demigod is debatable, but he certainly hints at it, and the game shows us the consequences of following this kind of vision. And these consequences are not trivial, but lead to drug addiction, crime, and in the end, a broken Dionysian crumbling decay of a city and its society within. As we progress through the game itself, we will see not one but numerous examples of this decay, and it is in no doubt a project beyond reparation. Ryan himself admits this to Jack, and seems happy or at least stubbornly willing enough to bring on his own death via mind control of our protagonist. Ryan's rapture is far from redemption, and its only remaining salvation is death itself. Ryan tried to create his own Garden of Eden, but without any of the divine elements. Ryan was a Gnostic, raising himself to the status of a god, but failed in his delusion. Ryan's error was in trying to usurp the perfection of the divine. However, inevitably he and it had to fail. He's not God, only man, and man is imperfect. So we enter the lighthouse, externally adorned with the Eye of Providence, and internally overseen, symbolically and literally, by the Masonic square and compass. The lighthouse inners are decorated with a plethora of gold plaques, of which a number contain the sun surrounded by leaping fish. I'm not going to go into details here, but the sun features in multiplicity, including a tribute inside of the bathysphere. Gold spheres also adorn the walls in tribute to the arts and sciences promulgated within Rapture itself. Entering the bathysphere, control of the player is taken away as we descend into Ryan's new Eden, and depths of 10 and 18 fathoms pass by the window. The bathysphere we might interpret as a mystical egg being guided into Ryan's rapturous womb as we pass past the city's buildings and eventually arrive at the entrance to the city itself. After a brief pause, we are pulled towards the main entrance, and after Ryan's propaganda has finished, we are introduced by radio to Atlas, who for now will become our spiritual guide. I say spiritual guide, his guidance is far from altruistic, and as we will see later in the game, although his guidance gives us the impression of free will, he in fact uses mind control in order to get Jack to bring down the plane, and we are unknowingly at Atlas's beck and call. And so we enter Rapture, although not the Rapture Ryan envisaged. Rapture is now a decaying detritus, a city of lunacy and addiction. It's a world bereft of spirit, goodness and order. The hero begins his quest here, and already confronts death as a crazed splicer attempts to slice him up even before leaving the bathysphere. After this, the hero quickly learns to get moving and is guided by Atlas. Atlas helps him find a weapon and leads him through what I can't help but only describe as into a rabbit hole. For the record, we will look at a few references to Alice in Wonderland later in these essays, but for now we may assume that this entrance point symbolises an initiation into a kind of underworld where our hero, like Orpheus, must confront and surpass the dark side of human nature. Once we enter the main entrance, a couple more points of interest can be noted. First, a scaled down model of the city rests inside an obelisk. Obelisks in ancient Egypt represented the Benben, which was the primordial mound upon which the god Atum stood at the creation of the world. These were associated in the Greek tradition with the phoenix. The phoenix, just to recap, is a bird who represents creation itself, and so we have Ryan's city quite literally as the creation of a new and alternative world. This of course makes perfect sense in this context. Next we are naturally guided up the stairs, whereby we find a sinister looking machine adorned above with 6 symbols, and surprise surprise we find an all-seeing eye again. On either side of the mechanism we encounter a rather creepy porcelain statue of a girl and 2 sets of Amanita muscaria mushrooms. These fungi were used, and still are in contextually different ways, in many ancient mystery religions as passages to the divine. I could write an entire essay here on this, but let's just say for now that these symbols yet again point us to alchemy and esoteric traditions. So in summary, we have already in these introductory essays seen a plethora of esoteric and occult symbols. Added to which, we now know that mind control is at play, and as we will see next time, once our hero grabs the first plasmid, genetic modification will also be a large part of our hero's journey. For now though, we'll leave Jack to rest before seeing just how deep the rabbit hole really goes. Thank you for watching. Episode 4, coming soon.
This little fish looks like he just had his cherry popped. Wonder if he's still got some Adam on